Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Deborah Pruitt, John Burton Advocates for Youth. This is our April technical assistance call for the 2018 California Foster Youth FAFSA Challenge. Glad you're all here, and we have several folks to give little short versions of their experiences with some of the FAFSA Challenge pieces. And I've got a couple of announcements and reminders, so I'm going to go ahead and get started with that. But start with reminding you, if you haven't done it, or telling you if you haven't done this before, just notice the control panel that should be on your screen. And there is an icon on the right-hand side, which I'll move mine so I can see. You can move the control panel around and make it, get it out of your way if you need to. And you'll notice the hand icon, and that's where you can raise your hand so I can unmute you so you can hear me. And also you can post your question in the control panel if you use that section as well. And but I do really want to hear from folks. I'm hoping we can really have some conversation today. So don't be shy, raise your hand. Everybody's muted, so you don't have to worry about noise in your background. But if you raise your hand, then I will unmute you and we can have some conversation. Okay, so with that, I will. And I am recording the call, and we will get this posted if anyone needs to share it with someone or you want to listen again. So I want to just mention who else is on the call with me. Melinda Clemens is here. I mean, most of you have been emailing and communicating with her off and on. So she's here for any particular questions that she can help with and to make an announcement. I have some notes from Angelica Perez at Glenn County, but I think she's not here because she wanted to be, but they're doing a college tour today. So I'm going to share a couple of points that I learned from her. Beth Wilshire from Tulare County is here to share some things, insights that she's gained from this, and things worthy of sharing. And Pam Hancock from Fresno County is here. So I've just been picking up tidbits I've been hearing about things that are going on and asked a couple people to share. I'm sure all of you have really great things to share about your efforts, and we have a chance to get more on that. But first I want to make an announcement. We will be announcing the awards for the first round of the FAFSA Challenge at the Ed Summit next week, Tuesday morning, April 10th at 8:30 a.m. So be there or be square. That's when we will be announcing the winners of the challenge in those three categories. We actually did decide, when we looked at the results, we saw a lot of counties in what we were calling the small group. And yet most of those have very few students. So we wanted to acknowledge more of the success there. And so we decided to split that group into two, and we're giving two $500 awards to those counties. And then the $1,000 awards going to the large and the medium-sized counties. And remember, that means not the size of the county itself, but the number of foster youth seniors in the county this year. So we're looking forward to that. We're going to have some fun with that. So, you know, at this point, pretty much everyone has been really successful in getting a lot of FAFSA and CADA, the California DREAM Act applications, completed, or at least submitted, I should say. This is a key distinction that I'm trying to start making now. So even if you don't have 100%, I think pretty much everyone has made huge progress in getting more FAFSA completions, creating the relationships and the activities that help make that to happen. But this is the time to make sure then to catch those students who haven't gotten the FAFSA submitted, to make sure that everybody got their CHAFE application submitted at the same time, or now, if not at the same time, that the students have a web grants account so they can start looking at their own aid awards and checking for their status. And also, now's the stage to start with the matriculation process. Make sure the college application's done, that they have gotten their orientation done, or at least set up and scheduled, that they're working on their assessment process and placement, and so forth. So this is a quick reminder, and we're going to hear some things from the guest speakers that are here today that it go right to those points. So I want to turn it over to Melinda for a minute, and she's going to make a request of you. Melinda?
Yes. Hi, everybody. So yeah, if you haven't yet checked out the FAFSA Challenge page in the last few weeks, we have a new section called Featured FAFSA Challengers. And we have some pretty sliders for your story. So please send me, you can email me, even if it's bullet points, however you want to do it, whatever news you want to share, events that you've held, ways you're working with your partners, a quote from a student would be awesome. Whatever you want to share, we'll get it up on the webpage. So yeah, that's
Great.
it.
Thanks. Yeah, Melinda, it put together this nice sort of box right there on the page, and it rotates. You can click through and see different quotes and stories, and so we want to make sure that we highlight all the great things that you all are doing. So thanks, Melinda. You can send those to melinda@jbay.org. Should have put that on the website, on the slide. Sorry, I was rushing to get this done this morning. So I'm going to move to say a couple of things about Glenn County, and this just happens to be because I was in communication with Angelica there, and she told me about, here's what it was. I was asking her if they'd gotten their web grants access yet, and they hadn't yet. They're a small county, had under 20 seniors, and actually under 10. And so we know a lot of the smaller counties thought, well, that's a lot of work right now. I'm not going to worry about it. I know how to reach each of the students, and that's great. We're going to continue to make the case why everyone will want to have access to web grants reports. But in this case, I thought I wanted to highlight what Angelica was able to do. First of all, they got almost all but one of their students completed the FAFSA. And this was a whole new effort in their county. And she is their education specialist. I think she worked directly with these students. And so she made sure each of them completed the Chafee application at the time. That's what we like to tout as a best practice. And each of them signed up for their student web grants account at the same time, which again, we tout as a best practice. And so she did tell the story about one student who she was helping them figure out their web grant account, how to access it, and what it can tell them whether they got the Chafee grant, how much their award is, if there's anything wrong with their application. Well, sure enough, one of these students did not have a GPA match. So she was able to go back to her counselor and get that fixed, so that now we know she'll be in that pool for Cal Grant and for a good financial aid package. So I wanted to brag on them a little bit, because without web grants, that's the best practice, and the access the student has will verify that their application is submitted and complete. And by that distinction, I'm referring to the difference between having hit submit and the application goes in, and complete, meaning that the information has been checked through and it's sufficient and accurate so as to calculate an EFT, the expected family contribution, which is the basis for the financial aid package. And then also that the GPA, your high school GPA, is matched. And especially if they come from some special schools, that may be an issue. And so that's what makes an application complete. Okay, so we'll talk some more about that. So I'm going to invite Beth Welcher from Tulare County to share some of her experience, because again, we were talking and I just thought some of the things she was saying were great to share, because I think they're probably shared with most of the folks who've been participating in the FAFSA Challenge. So here's Beth Wilshire from Tulare County to share her perspective on what this has done.
So, good morning. One of the things that we, I think, as Deborah has on the slide, is we found out that lots of people were helping our foster youth fill out these applications, but everybody thought the other person was doing it. So nobody was actually following through to make sure they were complete. And it was web grants that actually helped us figure out that they were complete. So that was huge. counselors, group home staff, all of those people were doing those things, but not making sure that they were complete. We actually had a school district that was doing it as a senior class project. They were filling them out online in class. And one of the youth, we happened to look at her and saw that she didn't get an award. And we were like, no, she should have gotten an award. She has the GPA. She's in foster care, but she didn't get an award. And went back and looked, and the teacher was just saying, go through and check this box, check this box, check this box, but didn't say, hey, if you were ever in foster care or you are in foster care, you might want to check this box. Or if you were in a guardianship, check this box. So we've figured out some gaps that we need to educate our districts about, making sure that our counselors, if they're doing those kinds of things, that they're including someone from our Child Welfare Services ILP or AB 12 units, because they understand that that stuff much better than some of our school district staff. So we have been working with them to build up teams. We also learned that some of our alt ed sites, some of our youth GPAs weren't uploaded. So it didn't connect with some people to upload their GPAs. So finding out that and getting that process changed. We really found that this process with the FAFSA challenge was a way for us to strengthen our county connections, connect with counselors at school sites, connect our school sites with our AB 12 and our ILP workers. Some of them didn't even know that a youth had an ILP worker, making sure that our ILP workers are including the school counselors in their transition independent living program plans. So we've been doing a lot of that work. Although when we took a breath and said, oh, we're good, March 2nd is over with, we can breathe now. Now we realize we have to get priority registration and get them enrolled in college and get the orientations and all of those things done. So that's what we've kicked in doing now. So I actually found this a really interesting process and a way to figure out where our gaps were in our county.
That's great. Thank you. I think I've heard some of this from other folks as well. And it was just so great for you to be able to articulate it to this group this morning. And glad to hear that, a lot of folks had to go through a fair amount of hassle to get their web grants access. So we realized that was not the easiest process. I think it wasn't the easiest, smoothest process for you, right?
It wasn't
worthwhile.
It was worthwhile. It wasn't the easiest process, but it wasn't as difficult as I anticipated it being. I don't know if that makes sense. It was not an easy process, but it wasn't as difficult as I thought. I actually found everybody pretty helpful in helping us get that set up.
Oh, that's great. Good to hear. Yeah. Good. Okay, so we've got a question. I'm hoping I can get to Roseanne here and unmute. Rosanna, you're on if you want to raise a question or comment.
I was just, I heard you talk about the alt ed sites not having the GPA uploaded, and I'm wondering how you went ahead and did that. We're still trying to get web grant. I'm still trying to get web grants access. It should come through any day now. But when I was completing the application, I noticed that some of the sites don't have College Board codes, and so I wasn't sure how that would affect their ability to submit GPAs electronically, and what would be the alternate for those sites.
So what I did was, and that was kind of what had happened, is some of our youth that are doing like independent study, but we actually went back through our that district that they're assigned to and said to the person who is uploading GPAs for the high school, hey, you missed these youth. Somebody in that district needs to upload their GPAs. And that's really what we did, is went back and said, don't forget about these youth. Their GPAs need to be uploaded. I did that
for one youth who was enrolled in one of our districts, and I'm actually talking about our County Office of Education site. I couldn't find the College Board numbers, and I have a question out to some people, but I haven't heard back, so I didn't know if there was another way. If there isn't, if they don't have a College Board, can they still do it electronically, or?
I didn't run into that, so I haven't run into that. So.
All right.
Now you made me think. I'm going to have to go check my own County Office of Ed site. We have, our County Office of Ed sites have college codes. So, but so I just that's what I did with that.
A week or so ago, so I'll follow up. Thanks.
If anybody else has had an experience with that, raise your hand. And I'll say, Rosanna, as you find out about that, will you be sure and let me know so that I can include that information for everybody in our communication? I'm trying to remember if I've heard anyone identify this solution, and I don't think I know about it yet. So, okay, good. We'll add that to our, yes.
It's Melinda. So I think that, because I'm looking at the web grants FAQ, and there's a question, some of the schools listed on my list are accredited but do not have a College Board code. What do I do? Ideally, these schools will go through the process of getting a College Board code. Barring that, or while it is in process, you can email schoolsupport@csac.ca.gov a list of all students in these schools together with their corresponding GPA and SSN, and CSAC School Support can upload that information under a generic school code that they use for that situation.
Oh, and do we need, can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry, I wasn't sure if I was, what kind of documentation do they need? Like a copy of their transcript or just an email with the GPA number on it?
That's a good question. We can ask that question, but
okay.
It just says, email school support at CSAC. We could probably call and find out specifically. So we can follow up on that.
Okay.
Yeah, and Rosanna, you can call them, call the institutional support and ask them how to make sure you get the right documentation to them from the school. And also, just to note, Melinda, you said this was in the FAQ in our web grants manual, right?
Yeah, it's the web grants FAQ.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so this document that she just read that from is on the FAFSA Challenge webpage, just so everybody listening knows. That was in the frequently asked question document that we posted on the website that went along with the web grants manual. So that and many other sort of these arcane, nuanced questions are in there. And that's where we'll continue to put information that you share with us that you learn as you run into these issues. So again, Rosanna, if you find out exactly what to submit, and we'll follow up too, but we can make sure we have the same information and put it in that document for future reference.
Great, thank you.
Good, thanks Melinda for catching that. That's a good head start for her and anybody else. Okay. Anybody else have questions or comments about any of the things that we've talked about since Beth came on? All righty, I'm going to invite Pam Hancock, if she's on the line still, and I'm pretty sure I saw you join Pam. And so I'm going to, you're unmuted, so I'm going to switch to Fresno County. Thanks so much, Beth. This was helpful, and I think it'll be part of a big discussion we have at the May meeting. This, among other things, what's worked, where the advantages have been, where we can find more opportunity. So Fresno County, I happen to know, had their extreme registration event this week on Wednesday, and I was communicating back and forth a little bit and heard some interesting things about their sort of next stage developments and how they do the extreme registration. And I wanted to give Pam a chance to share a bit of that, because this is kind of going that next level, because you all have had this extreme registration going for several years, right? So you're kind of at a 3.0, I don't know, maybe more than that, in terms of evolving what you're able to accomplish at that event. And if you can just give a brief explanation about what it is, and then kind of what you added to it this year, because these are the kinds of things others might be able to watch for with their students as they get to that place. Are you there, Pam? Maybe Pam had to. Pam, just unmute your phone if you're muted. Because I know I won't be able to do justice to this. All right, so she got called away or something. And so the extreme registration event in Fresno County is one that the County Office of Ed coordinates along with the colleges, the community colleges, and the high schools in the area to put on an event where they bring students from the various high schools, the foster youth students, to the college campus at Fresno State, and you take them through the entire registration, the matriculation process. So they get their FAFSA completed. They also get their orientation done. And I think some of the assessment and placement processes handled and so forth. So there's some prep work that goes into it. I happen to know that. It's not everything 100% done on that day, but the prep leads to the ability for the students to actually be registered. And on Wednesday, they were able to register 24, I heard 25, so somewhere around there, 24 to 25 students who are actually registered, ready to start school in the fall, which is tremendous. So, and Pam, if you're here, just chime in if you get to come back. And one of the things that they mentioned, and I, to be honest, haven't had time to even look up what the IRS Form 4506T is, but they added that to their process with the students this year. And I'm pretty sure that's the transcript form where you have to provide a transcript that even if you don't complete a tax return, then the financial aid office, the Federal Aid Commission has to have a copy of the transcript. Are you there?
I am.
Hey, Dan. Ooh, bad background noise. You got an echo. Are you on your computer?
Yes, I just turned it off.
Oh, good. Perfect. Great.
Okay.
So I was trying to introduce the extreme registration. I just gave my own version of a very brief description of what it is. So I'm going to invite you to,
Great. Okay. It is, over. And I heard everything that you said, Deborah.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Right. It is perfect. So I think this was our 4th year, and we just keep perfecting it. Before we were missing a lot of steps, not knowing, but we just keep, people keep throwing things at us. So this year, we do a lot of behind the scenes work, making sure they've submitted their application, they have their FAFSA completed, they have, their PIN, their FAFSA PIN number, they have their student email. But for those kids that we still haven't, accomplished that, we have workstations throughout the room for extreme registration. So then what we found out this year, we also added the financial aid verification forms, number 14 and 8, I believe. And that's something else that our students need, because we're finding out, okay, we've done all these things with the FAFSA, but they're still being, their awards are being postponed, and they're not getting it at the beginning of the school year, which really impacts them. The other thing that we added is you have on there is
I'm sorry, Pam, can I interrupt you for a second to just ask you, to make sure I'm clear what you mean by the verification that they were missing that you added this time?
Well, there are 2 forms that they have to complete. And we have a real strong connection with our community colleges, right, and we work real closely with them. And so they work closely with their financial aid offices, and they said, hey, we still need these 2 forms to be completed before the award is, actually awarded. So the financial aid verification form number 14 and number 8. Those are 2 different forms. So we're sitting, on Wednesday, going through this whole thing, and I would really advise, if you do something like extreme registration, have someone from financial aid there, because they can answer all the questions and they have the knowledge. So instead of us muddling through it. So then right in the middle of it, we found out that they also needed an IRS form. And we're going, are you kidding me? Okay. So it's IRS form 450-6T. And that is a statement that I did not submit, what do you call it? The IRS, like tax,
tax return?
Tax return. I don't have any money. They have to put that down. They have to have their social
right.
security. Well, this was really interesting. We had 24 students there, and they were being challenged at just putting their name and middle name. I don't know what my middle name. So it was kind of challenging. We got all the way through it. And then we saw their eyes. We were telling them, then you have to go down to the IRS, either submit it or mail it to them. And we made a decision right there that we were going to take the forms, make sure they were correct, and mail them in ourselves, because we knew then it would be done. Otherwise, this is another form that will stop and delay their award at the beginning of the school year.
Exactly.
It's just really
exactly.
Yeah, and Beth, she just nailed so many things about, a lot of people we're along the lines of, yes, a lot of people are saying they're helping them, but they're not doing it completely. They're not marking the right boxes. So whenever we're working with the students, October through, January, February, we're making sure we're bringing it back up and making sure it's all complete. And Beth might be able, or Deborah, you might be able to help me in this area. They are saying that on the application, it's the question, is your parent, I don't know if this is the school application or if this is a FAFSA, but they're asking whether their parent is deceased, whether they're in guardianship or whether they're in foster. If there's a way to change that, because as soon as they see the death, they just move on and they don't even check the box.
I think that is in the FAFSA, isn't it?
I'm not for sure. So, but anyway, we just keep adding more things, and we were more prepared this year. We had it was probably a 1-to-8 ratio, choosing classes and along those lines, and then make sure they were registered. And then it was really great. And we had kids that were crying because at the very end, the Fresno City College president came in and more or less, the challenges and everything, but now they stood up and they were 100% considered a college student because they were fully matriculated.
It was terrific.
It really was nice. So anyway.
That's huge. Well, and thanks, Pam, because you're bringing up several of the things that are what we hear from the college financial aid folks that they often are working with students on after they've gotten to campus in the fall. They're trying to register for classes. They're trying to get their financial aid, and they say, oh, well, you didn't submit this IRS transcript. So
Correct.
We have to get that in before you can get your financial aid. And then they are weeks into the semester without books. And
exactly.
Perhaps without critical money to eat, and it's all because they didn't know about this particular form or the verification form of their foster youth status requiring a word of the court letter.
Correct.
And then they submit, right? So by you all taking it on in their senior year, they're coming to college in the fall really ready to get started and with some financial aid to make it possible.
Right. Now, if we can just herd them and keep them to get them there that first day, that's the next challenge. So,
well, it's nice that the college president came in and said what he did, because that helps them identify more. And the fact that you do the event on the campus, right? They start to feel more comfortable that they could sit there. Yeah.
Right, and they do the tour. And a thing that we've added that I know a lot of other counties do this, but we've added in more of the current college students. So the students that are the community college in the Next Up programs, former foster youth, and then also from our CSU Fresno, and that's in the Renaissance program. And it is such a great connection. It is so fantastic. So they're there to do campus and support them.
Great. Terrific. Okay, so there's some inspiration for down the road, and all because you kept laying foundation and building on that. And so some of you who this is the first time you really looked at financial aid applications and helping students with that transition, then you've got some of the foundation laid, and then you can be kind of plugging these pieces in as you can go. And next year, fortunately, we'll have our plan and our process in place for the FAFSA challenge and for our assistance with it in the fall, the fall of this year, when it should be happening. So as of October 1st, when FAFSA season and the FAFSA application opens, we'll be right on board with you all to help put more of these pieces into place, so that by the time, February of 2019 comes around, then it's easy to be really identifying any students that haven't gotten caught yet. I don't want to use language. I started to say captured, and I don't mean it literally. I mean it in terms of their FAFSA completion. Anybody that needs these forms, that it's this process of follow up. So it's going from submission to completion. Pammy helped illustrate that really nicely. Thank you. Any questions? I don't see any hands raised. Anybody have any comments that you want to make?
Deborah, I'm just going to jump on. I'm going to tell you, I had several education liaisons, the district liaisons, said that they loved the posters, the FAFSA challenge posters.
Oh, good to hear.
Okay.
That's great. Yeah, well, and anybody who has ideas for design for next year, send them in, right? We'll be scrambling around trying to look for design ideas. So I'm glad to hear that, though. And I think I underestimated how important some of those materials could be to folks. So it's really good to get that feedback, and any specifics that you all hear or notice would be useful, helpful. We'll have a little more time to get things into play earlier this time. Thanks. Thanks for that. Okay, I'm going to move on. Thanks, Pam. Tremendous. Okay, I just have a couple things that sort of back up what folks have been saying. And if you've just gotten your web grants access, you may not have figured out the reports yet. I'm going to urge you to go A, to our web grants manual, and B, to the recording of the TA call in February when Dolores Daniel from Santa Barbara described how she figured out a good way to work with the report to make it easier to find the students. But I wanted just to remind folks, if you haven't already gotten in there and started looking around at what you have available to you, you're going to see the GPA summary report is where you can verify whether or not the student high school GPA has been matched to their FAFSA application. And we keep hearing time and time again that sometimes it's a simple problem of a name, spelling change, or a hyphenated name where on one application was not used that way, but the school record shows it as a hyphenated name, and then the match doesn't happen, and that will keep them from getting their financial aid. And in the red circle, I have no EFC circle. That's that expected family contribution, which is the key to determining the need for aid. And these students almost all will have a 0 for expected family contribution, which gives them the maximum amount of aid that a student can get. If no EFC is calculated, it means there was some error or omission in the application itself that needs to be fixed. And the student web grants report will help show what it is that was missing or needs to be corrected. And if your folks aren't sure, and some of those kids are very, very technical, and a lot of the district staff, as you've been hearing today, or the ILP counselors, won't know all of these details. They won't understand the significance of some of the questions or the need for a particular form to submit. So the college financial aid folks are extremely helpful. And if you've got a foster youth program in your colleges, then those staff can usually answer these questions. And if they don't know, they'll know who the financial aid technician is that's the most sympathetic and understanding of foster youth needs. So draw on them. We do all the time, and they're all very, very interested in helping foster youth. So you don't have to become that expert, but know who your experts are, right? And then the next one I wanted to show you, remind folks, if you're just getting started with this or still figuring out how you're going to use these, this is just looking at how the match is verified between the GPA and the student's FAFSA application. And it will tell you, if there is no match, that means, again, there's some misspelling in a name or a different name used or something like that. So, and what I'm hearing from numerous people, and I think we heard it some in the comments that Beth was making in particular, and it's obvious in the way Fresno uses their information, is that when you have this information, excuse me, you have more assistance to provide your partners, district, ILP, your group homes, special school, so that it becomes easier to build that relationship and partnership. So this access can actually give you tools for assistance, and it's very strengthening. I'm just hearing that from lots of folks. And then just to remind you, we were really happy to get so many of the March reports in and on time. And we'll have one more report. And May 31st, I realized we scheduled our statewide meeting. I should put a note up here for that. Our statewide technical assistance meeting for college and career transition is going to be May 30th in Oakland. If you haven't seen that email, let me know. I'll make sure you got the registration information. I'm excited because I'm pulling together some folks from Career Ed to be there to help. And I think we're going to be able to do a little working session to help really get clear about what some of those options are for students. And financial aid can help with the Career Ed programs that are shorter certificate programs that can get them into meaningful jobs and lead to a career path. So little decoration there. The May 31st deadline for that report. Of course, I know all of you will have your reports done by then, but we may have to extend it a bit because we're also learning more about CSAC and the timing on their data. So stay tuned for that. But this is also when it'll be important that we have your student anonymized identifiers. I have that circle down at the bottom for the scholarship drawing. Okay, and we're not doing that now. We'll do that at the end of the challenge in June. We'll do those drawings, and then we'll announce the winners of those at an event in the fall. And obviously, we'll notify everyone before that. So, anyone have anything else? Let me just throw up this slide to remind you the FAFSA challenge page on JBay's website has all these resources that we've referred to a couple of times here, campaign resources, and also the web grants manual, the web grants FAQ, where Melinda found part of the answer to Rosanna's question. We'll look forward to more information on that. What else? Who else? Please, love to hear. Who else has something you could share about what you discovered or what you've seen develop out of your FAFSA challenge effort? Anybody? Everybody's shy, or else you're working on your email. I understand. Well, it's good to see you all here. Glad that you could be here. Oh, good. Dolores, you got your hand up. Let me get you open here. Hey, Dolores, thanks.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I shared this when I turned the last report in, just that it's been really rewarding doing this. And some of the things that came up, like for instance, we had a student who did fill out her FAFSA, but she did it for the wrong year. And
wow.
She thought she had everything taken care of. She did her part, and yet she would not have ended up, with financial aid at the beginning of next school year. And when we called her, she was shocked, but we were able to give her all the information, and we're going to be following up, make sure. CSAC was really helpful. They gave me all the steps, like she would need to follow up about a week after she submits it, and because her GPA verification was in on time, she will still qualify for a Cal Grant. She won't lose it. So
that's great.
There were a lot of things that came up along the way, and just knowing that being this involved in the process and being so dedicated to helping this particular group of students, it was really making a difference, and just kind of seeing it unfold was very rewarding. And I mentioned that when I turned in my report, just looking forward to doing it next year. So that's all I wanted to share.
That's great. Thank you. And I would never have thought about a problem of the student completing the application for the wrong year, although I know it has gotten more complicated now in that regard, but that's such an unexpected kind of problem to pop up.
Yeah. Well,
so thanks for telling us about it.
Sorry, I just realized that the kind of key information is that it came to light because once, right before we turned in the last report, I looked at the spreadsheet that I was using to track, and when a student or a staff member, someone reported that a student had completed their FAFSA, then I, obviously was definitely looking for those names to show up at least a couple of weeks afterward on the web grants reports. So right before we turned in the March 23rd report, I noticed there was a handful of students who had plenty of time for their FAFSAs to be processed from the point in time that they said they had completed it, and they still weren't showing up on the reports. So I was able to call in, and that's when I uncovered certain situations. And so that's how, because I would have just kind of thought that maybe this was a student that hadn't done hers, but since she had reported and I was cross-referencing what was showing up on web grants between the personal reports, that's why we dug a little deeper. So I don't know if everybody's doing that, but I basically had 2 columns for like self-reported versus the web grants. So
that's a really nice distinction. And a lot of folks rely on self-reporting, and that's when we find out that maybe they didn't actually hit submit. They got to the end and they thought they were finished, or they didn't have a signature that was needed, or something as simple as that. And so I think we're going to work next year on the distinction. There's self-report, and then there's sort of CSAC verified that it's submitted, and then there's completed. So that's that step of it's not only submitted, but you've got an ESD and you've got a GPA verification. And now I need to add, and it's for the right year. Right? So good. Bravo. Thank you. That's helpful information. I think everybody can relate to that. Well, I don't see any other hands up. Anybody else? The cursor's acting weird again. I'm going to call problem. All right, well, I'm going to call it then. I think this was extremely helpful. Thanks for all of you who shared information and questions. And we will do this again the 1st of May, the first Friday of May. And then we will do a much more in-depth debrief on the FAFSA challenge, what worked, what learnings you got, and the value, the benefits of it, where you're using those, how you're working with your partners, and then also any challenges and things that we can figure out how to fine-tune. But I always like to give a sort of shout out to CSAC, because just heard it again this morning. They've been, so far, everyone has said they've been really helpful when calling in with any questions. So don't be shy about using their helplines. And I have to say, from the folks that I've worked directly with, they really do want to support youth in the state. And in particular, I think they do have most of them have a soft spot for foster youth. So they'll be there for you if you have any questions. And so are we. So look forward to being in touch soon. And definitely next FAFSA Friday call. And then we also have a regular TA call on, for all other issues, subjects, FAFSA as well, but other topics. The next TA call is on Tuesday, April 17th. So see you there. Thanks. Bye, everybody.